Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. More Bajans are stepping forward for professional help to fight addictions in the aftermath of COVID restrictions. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 5th April 2022. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. An increase in the need for counseling in the aftermath of the lifting of COVID restrictions in Barbados.
More Barbadians are stepping forward for professional help to cope with challenges now that COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted. Word of this from Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Center for Counseling Addiction Support Alternatives, CASA, Edmund Grimes. Speaking at a church service on Sunday to celebrate the organization's 22nd anniversary, Grimes noted that people were seeking help particularly for substance abuse through the organization's recently launched mental health hotline.
Quite often we talk about substance abuse. Substance abuse doesn't always start with just experimenting and aiming to be cool. Sometimes it starts with an underlying problem. And if we can tackle those problems and bring people counsel to help them to find their solutions, then they may not turn to substance abuse. They may not turn to substances at all. So that's definitely one of the aims of CASA. Welcome.
Grimes told Barbados Today this increase in the need for counseling requires the organization to bring on more counselors. As a result, he says, CASA will have to step up its fundraising activities to maintain its operations.
And the final event for the month will be a flea market to raise funds. That is on Saturday, the 30th of April, at the Barbados Union of Teachers. They're in Hothersville. So they have a flea market there occasionally, and we will be there as well.
Meanwhile, the government of Barbados is not in a position to consider salary increases for public servants in the current economic environment. Details in this Barbados Today news item.
So says Special Envoy on Investment and Financial Services, Professor Avinash Prasad, in response to a recent revelation from the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations that it will be seeking increased pay for public sector workers, given the rising cost of living. Prasad explains the government has already spent millions to save public sector jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the economy is still yet to recover.
So it's totally understandable that people are concerned about cost of living. We're trying to do our best to get cost of living down, as you saw in the budget, with our freezing of freight, of the tax on freight as of the prices of freight 2 years ago. And reducing the tax on fuel, and I think you've seen some of that at the fuel pump already. But as you say, if you look then also at the wider context of COVID and the war and the cost of these measures, the fiscal space is very, very tight. We have built up significant amounts of debt because we've made a choice not to respond to the crisis by shedding labor.
Professor Prasad admitted that while the union's calls were totally understandable, they are, however, unfavorable given the current developments.
I'm not alone in being someone who strongly believes in unionism and believes in the Barbados model of workers being represented by unions. And the unions are doing their job in raising the issues that workers have, and what government has to do is to try and fit it all together, to square the circle. COVID cost us $1 billion, and there are multiple ways in which we could have paid that $1 billion. We could have cut a lot of government expenditure, is one way. We chose not to, and that's why our debt went up, and people have complained bitterly about debt going up. But we felt that the debt going up was the way we could protect workers.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown has taken issue with Jamaica's decision to nominate its Foreign Affairs and Trade Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith for Commonwealth Secretary General. This ABS television report has more.
Prime Minister Brown says while he believes Johnson-Smith is duly qualified, Jamaica's move could have far-reaching consequences.
What will happen is that you will have an abridged term, and when our rotation comes sometime in the future, I can see another region arguing that we don't have the capacity to serve, and that the Secretary General who served would have been brought into disrepute and would have been replaced.
It's customary for SGs to serve 2 4-year terms. However, Baroness Scotland's tenure has been controversial. But the Prime Minister says he's hopeful CARICOM will unite on the matter.
There's a push now to have a meeting early this week, and hopefully we can have a consensus and we can dissuade Jamaica from not proceeding on this particular issue, and for us to support Baroness Scotland. At the end of the day, Baroness Scotland is a Caribbeaner.
Elections for Secretary General will take place at the Commonwealth Heads of Government Summit in June in Kigali, Rwanda.
Still on Antigua, the UWI Five Islands Campus Council has unveiled grand plans for the further build-out of the institution. Jessica Russell of the ABS News reports.
The University of the West Indies Five Islands Campus Council met on Friday with major plans being unveiled for the campus. The university's principal, Professor Denzel Williams, says there are plans for a long-term infrastructural revolution at the campus. The government has moved to acquire 4 parcels of land totaling 50 acres needed for the expansion. 1 parcel has already been obtained.
That first parcel of land will accommodate all of these things in the short term. It will accommodate our student center, it will accommodate student housing, it will accommodate our administrative complex, and it will also accommodate our cafeteria and all the other things that our students need immediately.
He says the new design will also include eco-friendly facilities and a sports complex.
This is an ongoing activity where the government recognizes that if the potential of this campus is to be realized, the continued acquisition of lands for the campus is critical. And it is for this reason that I will announce, and I just shared with you, Professor Williams, that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet has mandated me to identify suitable lands for the relocation of the Five Islands Primary School, which sits on 8 acres of land adjacent to the campus, for the build-out and development of a state-of-the-art primary school, so that the UE Five Islands campus can have the opportunity to expand onto that 8 acres.
Financially, the principal says the institution has performed well during its 2nd year.
We are now very pleased to report that despite all of that, we have seen, Chairman, a 76% increase in our surplus for that academic year. We are very pleased, and we want to thank our finance team. We want to thank all of the members of the Five Islands campus who understand the sacrifice and have worked with us to deliver tremendous financial success.
The principal says this was accomplished despite an increase in expenses caused by a larger faculty and staff. The UE Fort Landed campus opened its doors over 2 years ago. Jessica Russell, ABS News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
A search at sea for 5 missing men after a vessel they were in overturned around 3:30 p.m. last Saturday. According to the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the cargo vessel, which is from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, overturned with 7 people on board near waters north of Manos Island. TV6's reporter Cindy Ragubatika Singh spoke with National Security Minister of Trinidad and Tobago Fitzgerald Hines and brings us this update.
5 out of a 7-member crew remain missing at sea tonight after their boat capsized as it was making its way to Grenada from Trinidad. According to the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the boat, a cargo vessel MV Fairchance from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, overturned 5 nautical miles north of Monos Island. Late this afternoon, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines said search and rescue operations continue.
Yes, this incident took place involving a cargo vessel which regularly runs between Grenada and Trinidad and Tobago, and it resulted in the overturn of that vessel. It is reported that there were 7 persons on board.
2 men were rescued by a passing boat on Saturday. They were taken to Stobbles Bay and medically examined and are said to be in good condition. Their names have been given as Jonelle McIntosh of Grenada and Daryl Small of St. Vincent. In the Coast Guard statement, it noted that the vessel encountered rough north coast seas and overturned due to a shift of the cargo on board. Minister Hines says all resources and efforts are being utilized in the search.
Overnight, there was some difficulties in terms of the drift of the vessel, given the currents and the circumstances out on the water. So the Coast Guard had to make additional arrangements with their Venezuelan counterparts to facilitate operations in their space, and that was successfully settled.
The minister also confirmed that they have been in contact with officials from both St. Vincent and Grenada since the incident occurred.
Our Minister of Foreign Affairs has been in touch with his counterparts in St. Vincent and Grenada from the report that I have, and we too in Trinidad and Tobago extend deep and sincere condolences to those persons who are going through the trauma of trying to find out now what is the state of affairs with their loved ones.
Cindy Raghubatika Singh, TV6 News.
Antigua and Barbuda has joined in paying glowing tribute following the death of the former Premier of Nevis, Vance Amory.
Antigua and Barbuda has joined in paying glowing tributes following the death of the former Premier of Nevis, Vance Winkworth Amory, at the age of 72. Prime Minister Honorable Gaston Brown has expressed heartfelt sympathies to the people and the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and to the family of Ambassador Amory on behalf of the government and the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Prime Minister Brown says St. Kitts and Nevis has lost a great son and the region has suffered an irreplaceable loss. In a letter to St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris today, Prime Minister Brown said, quote, "Though the friendship between our 2 states has always been very close, the committee between Premier Vance Amory and me has been extraordinarily warm. In many ways, I regarded him as the embodiment of the best of St. Kitts and Nevis. He was an outstanding cricketer who played for his island and also for the Leeward Islands team. Vance was a politician and statesman who brought a well-honed intellect to his assigned tasks." End quote. Amory, who was battling cancer, died in a hospital in London, England, where he was being treated. He served Nevis as Premier for 2 terms in the office between 1992 and 2006, and between 2013 and 2017.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's. Quality service, affordable prices.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.